Hi everyone, I'm Justin.
I'm Matt.
Welcome to Game On. This is a show all about tabletop gaming, from RPGs to board games and everything in between.
Indeed, and this is a part 2 of a topic that we started and it ran away from us, and so now here we are. We're talking about creating our ideal RPG, borrowing components from other games that we like and sort of compositing them together to talk about what our ideal game would be.
Yeah.
And it got out of hand. We ended up having to make 2 videos about it because there's just so much.
Exactly. If you haven't seen that video, click up here. It'll be right there. So, let's get into it.
So maybe the next thing to talk about is the dice system.
Yeah.
And that has to be at least somewhat related or compatible with the character creation process. Mm-hmm. But I think you can, within a family of games, you could transpose one to the other.
Yeah.
We've talked about this in a number of videos going back years and years, but my favorite dice system of all time, I think, is the dice pool system from the original White Wolf games.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore the simplicity of it.
Okay.
I love the fact that it's a dice pool. There's something satisfying about having a handful of dice and rolling them. It's not crazy like Shadowrun where you have to mortgage your house for a dice collection. But the other thing I like about it that's really, and it's not unique to White Wolf, but it's my best example, is the pool is combination of sort of natural attributes of your character and learned skills or abilities, right? Yeah. So there's a nature and a nurture element to your dice pool. And even if you don't have the skill for something, the fact that part of your pool is comprised of an attribute which you will have some of means that your character can try to do almost anything that is logically plausible in a game. Are you going to have a good chance to do it? No.
But you can give it a shot.
Right.
And there is a chance.
Right. There's always a shot at doing something. And it's not so crazy out of... it's not like a percentile system where they're like, oh, well, if you roll a natural 100, you get to do it.
Yeah.
Right? No. It's like, look, if you have X number of dice in your dexterity attribute, whatever thing you're trying to do that's dex-based, you'll at least have your natural human or other type of creature dexterity to attempt to perform whatever you're trying to do. Okay. So I love that idea. I also like the intuitiveness of saying, hey, I've got more dice, therefore I have a better shot at something.
Okay.
The third thing I love about that system, specifically about the White Wolf system, is you have 3 elements in a roll that are independently adjustable. You have the number of dice, you have your success difficulty, and you have the number of successes you need. For example, if you have an extended task, like you're trying to pull somebody up a rope that's hanging off a cliff, right? You can ace your first roll, but that's not going to yank them 200 feet up the cliffside, right? So you may need a cumulative total of, let's say, 10 successes to haul that person over the edge and get them back onto safe ground. You're not going to get them in one round. You're not going to get them in one roll. But
could the rope be slippery and then instead of a 5 on the D10, it's a 7 on the D10?
Of course. That's what I mean is you can make your character's physical build is going to determine how many dice you have in the pool. The conditions, is it raining? Is the rope slippery? Are they fat? The person that you're trying to haul up the thing, that'll dictate the number or how difficult the task is in order to get a success with the pool that you have. And then the last thing is, how far down are they? Right? So that's how many successes you need in order to get them back up. And each one of those elements of the dice system are independently adjustable, which is not something that normally happens in any other type of dice system. So... and it all, since it's base 10 and it's a handful of dice, the GM covers the difficulty and the number of successes, and the player comes to the table with the number of dice, So it's sort of a cooperative thing that develops between both the player and the GM, and it's 100% intuitive.
Yeah.
Like, so that's my ideal dice system, is probably borrowing wholesale from the old White Wolf system and just going with it.
I like it.
What about you? You got a dice system you love?
Well, quickly before I do that, I realize that this is July, and this is the 5th birthday of Game On.
Nice.
I didn't
Happy
realize
birthday to
that.
us.
Yeah.
And happy 50th birthday to D&D, too.
Yeah.
So, like, they're 10 times as old as us, but we're 10 times cooler.
You haven't run White Wolf for us ever. 5 years.
Not for you.
Not for me.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway.
Call up 5 of your friends, get them over here, and we'll run.
Some of your friends can come too.
I don't have any friends.
Fair enough.
You're it. So the rest is up to you.
Oh, jeez, it's a lot of pressure. So,
Dice system, man.
Yeah, Savage Worlds.
Okay. All right. So basically, your ideal game system this month is Savage Worlds.
Sort of.
3 months from now, it'll change though, because I know you.
Yeah, 3 months. Yeah.
When I first met you, you were a devotee of D&D. Like, you were all in on the D&D.
People grow. I like the simplicity of the system. It's almost like the opposite of what you said, where it's like I get to roll all these dice. Where it's like it's usually 2 dice, and I'm like, oh, that's easy. I don't know. For me, that's for my brain.
There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, and I like it. I like how it scales. Where it's like if you're better, if you're always trying to hit a 4 on the die, if you're better at the skill, you have a D8 as opposed to a D6.
Right.
So you have a better chance of hitting the...
Yeah, we were actually kind of talking about... There's a couple other systems that are like that, too, where what gets you the better shot is actually getting a different die to hit the same target with. And that's cool for dice geeks who just like to be able to use, hey, when do I get to use my D12? There you go. So that's cool. And it is intuitive also, because anybody who's passingly familiar with dice can say, well, more sides on the die mean better.
Yep, exactly.
So that's cool.
Stay tuned for a whole video on Savage Worlds, kind of.
Okay. I'm waiting with bated breath, but like I told you, I've never played it. So that's pretty much going to be you telling me about Savage Worlds.
Is there anything else from games that you can...
Anything else? Hell yeah. Of course. You told me I had to come up with a novel.
I see your
novel,
notes.
So here we go. Damage. Right? We're talking about dice systems, and a big part of dice systems is combat, and a big part of combat is damage. I really like a system that accommodates or accounts for a gradual reduction in ability as your character suffers injury, damage, whatever.
Okay.
Right? People's combat effectiveness goes down as they get tired or as they get hurt. Right? And so it shouldn't be an all or nothing thing. This is where we pick on the birthday boy Dungeons & Dragons and say, look, having 1 experience point and being 100... If you have 75 experience points on your level...
Hit points, I mean.
Hit points on your umpteenth level character, and you lose 74 of them because a dragon bites you in the ass, you're still 100% combat effective with 1/75th of your hit points. And I know people say, well, it's not a linear thing. It's just lets you know what your threshold for death. Yeah. That's just painting over the hole in the floor, right? Like that's garbage. Hit points. If you have less, you should be able to do less. And there's no way to make that not logical, to my way of thinking. So I want incremental damage modifiers, negative damage modifiers to your ability to do things.
Yeah.
Your combat effectiveness goes down. This is something that in the real world armies think about all the time, It's why supply chains are so important in combat, right? You got to get them food, and you got to get them fuel, and you got to give them a place to sleep, and all this stuff. You want people to stay sharp, and you want them to stay healthy so that they can fight harder. As you've explained to me, Savage Worlds does a good job of that, right?
Savage Worlds does.
Right. And my favorite, White Wolf did too.
Traveler.
Yeah. And what was the system we were talking? Yeah, well, Traveler is where your hit points are actually your skill.
Yeah, your attribute numbers.
Roll.
Yeah.
Right. So as you take damage, you actually lose your ability to roll for skills or whatever, So effectively it does the same thing. It's a little more complicated mechanic than I would like for that, but it accomplishes the task. So I dig that. What about you?
I'm actually kind of okay with having one hit point and still being functional.
So if I were to right now lose my temper and beat you to within 1 inch of your life, you would still be able to make a perfectly well-crafted video for these fine viewers.
No,
after
I
having
would not.
The tar beat out of you.
I would not.
Okay, I rest my case.
But I'm not a larger-than-life adventurer.
I don't have to...
Who can do magic and...
I don't know. You're a little larger than life. You're larger than me, anyway.
Fair enough. I get where you're coming from. I think just for sake of easiness, it's just.
I'm not gonna argue with you just because you're wrong.
Fair enough.
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
One thing kind of related to damage, which isn't necessarily its own category, but it's a feature that I really like and would incorporate into my perfect game. I loved old school BattleTech back in the 80s.
Sure.
And one of the things I really loved about it was the simple hit locations table that you had when you're duking it out between mechs and you're shooting this. And once you hit somebody, you roll on a 2d6 on a 2 to 12 chart, and it determines the hit location. There were 3 columns based on where your facing was. Were you straight on front to back, or were you to the left or to the right? And then so you had 3 columns in your table, but with 2d6 it is center weighted, right? It creates a natural bell curve. Mm-hmm. So the 6, 7, 8 is much more likely to come up on 2d6 than a 2 or a 12.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you were rolling 1d12, it's every location is the same probability, right? So I love that it was center weighted, and that works with center mass, which is how actual targeting works, right? You aim for the center of a bullseye, and then the amount of deflection gets incrementally larger over distance and skill, and would definitely use a hit location table of some form similar to that idea in my ideal game. The last big thing for me is experience and character advancement in game. Like we talked about character creation, how you get the starting point. Now, as you progress, right, you got to keep people rewarded for their participation. You want their characters to grow into something that's more than what they started with.
Yeah.
And certainly from a player psychology standpoint, everybody likes to get more badass. So you got to give them a mechanism to get more badass. There's a couple things about this. And this is where I will give old school D&D a little bit of a nod, because I'm in a very old school, like pre-second generation, like generation 1.5.
Okay.
D&D game. And we get experience awarded by the character, not by the player. Meaning, if your character is present in a game session, even as an NPC, you get half experience points because your character participated, even if you weren't there to do it. So, particularly with a level system like D&D, that's crucial because you don't fall behind the rest of the party.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like that idea. I like it as a reflection of the amount of action that your character takes, not necessarily what the player does. I don't like levels. I don't like level systems. Never have, never will. What I like is an incremental point buy system, right?
Okay.
Dole out some experience points. You can spend them a little bit at a time to make minor tweaks and improvements to your character, or you can save them up and you can drop them all in one big pile to buy one real big potent advancement for your character, which I guess would be like a leveling up.
Yeah.
But it's your choice. The system allows for either.
Yeah.
So that you can make your character and improve your character however way you personally like. What system? I mean, there's several that do this. In fact, it's probably the more common system than the leveling system.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Cyberpunk did it. Another, I talked about Battletech, but another FASA game from back in the 80s, the original Star Trek game. Kind of the same thing. It was a real skill-heavy system. Okay. And you just bought little bits here and there and kind of bumped up, and it allowed infinite customizability. So that's how I would do experience.
Yeah.
What about you?
We're gearing up for an Age of the Empire campaign. That's how Age of the Empire does it. Or Age of Rebellion, or all the Fantasy Flight Star Wars stuff.
And probably the other Fantasy Flight non-Star Wars stuff too, similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like that you kind of give out small bits of XP so that people want to keep on going on adventures to do that, to get that fancy thing that they want. I do like the idea that they have it's not a tech tree, it's a skill tree. So you can go down a tree and then it branches off or whatever, like in old school RTSs, or two characters that are the same class and same specialization can go down different sides of the tree and be completely different.
Right.
Which I like.
Yeah, and is very important for party harmony.
Yeah.
You don't want too much redundant skill in any party, particularly in an environment, a cinematic environment like Star Wars, where the last thing you want is to be the second best at something. Because you'll just basically be the guy on the bench while the other guy's up at the bat.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and there's 20 other things that go into an RPG, but I think that this kind of covers the major components.
Fair enough. I'd say so.
And, well, I like that your vision and mine are different. And you seem to be on a Savage Worlds kick right now. So that's a good teaser for an upcoming video. Justin is going to tell us all about why his ideal game system borrows about 2/3 of the Savage World book. So
it's the flavor of the month.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We are curious in hearing about your guys' favorites, what you would borrow from to make your ideal game. Is there a component, a section of game, character creation, experience points, whatever it is, that you think is great that we should know about and account for? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll definitely read those with great interest and reply to them as is appropriate. But until then, guys,
game on.
Game on.